Louise Dente, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Cultural Caravan. On this edition is a special. I'm joined by a very special guest, someone who I had the privilege of knowing when I first started my studies at Baruch College. His name is Dr. Arthur Lewin. He is a member of the Black and Latino Studies Department at Baruch College. He has been a part of the faculty since 1979, and he is actually celebrating over 44 years as an instructor of our history. Welcome, Dr. Lewin, to the Cultural Caravan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
One of the topics which we're going to explore, which I know you've done a lot of research in, is looking at the impact of media, particularly television and particularly movies, and the different messages that we get. When we go to movies, we sit there for sometimes several hours. We have movies that go up to 3 hours in some cases. But you've done some research and basically on looking at the subliminal and the other messages that sometimes people miss. Tell us what made you look into that area.
Well, when I was in graduate school, I read a book called Understanding Media by Marshall McLuhan. Also, his medium is The Message, and several other books by McLuhan. And I also read specifically Subliminal Seduction by Wilson Bryan Key, which came out in the 70s. And he discusses the whole theory of and practice of subliminal messaging, which is based on the theories of Sigmund Freud. And the whole idea of subliminal messaging was transferred to Madison Avenue by his nephew, Eric Bernays, who was a close disciple of Freud. So we see that's how it got into Madison Avenue. And that's how it has continued ever since. At one point, the federal government actually outlawed subliminal messaging by an act of Congress. However, if you read it carefully, there's no definition as to what it is. So therefore, it's a meaningless law. So people actually think it's been banned, but it hasn't. And it's in everything. It's in television, movies, it's advertising. And what happened is that the word subliminal means, sub means below, liminal is line in Greek. So the word subliminal means beneath the line of conscious perception. 90% of the mind is unconscious. So what happens is, if you are shown images or you hear sounds that you are not consciously aware of, but which seep into your unconscious, that acts as an instruction.
Yeah, and that's interesting because particularly as we start looking at the history of people of African ancestry and how we've been impacted by, our story has been impacted by racism or people's deliberate attempt to misconstrue and just totally put our history out of context and to, in some cases, try to embarrass and ridicule us. Understanding those messages, particularly those hidden messages, becomes critical in terms of understanding who we are. And so that's one of the things that I think I always took from that perspective of looking beyond the surface. With that said, and before we go further, I just want to pause for a moment and talk about some of your other works. Can you share with the audience some of the other works that you've done?
Well, my dissertation, which came out in 1978, is titled Social Control in Jamaica, Causes, Methods, and Consequences, and it compares the harsh laws against gun possession in Jamaica in the 1970s to the Rockefeller drug law. They both came into existence at the same time. That's my dissertation. The book, the most popular book I've written is Africa is Not a Country, It's a Continent. It's sold many copies, and it's widely available. I've written scholarly articles about a wide array of topics. One dealt with the fall of Michael Manley, the rise and fall of Michael Manley. I could go on and on,
Yeah, but understand,
but I
yeah,
just
I
leave.
appreciate you.
I just leave it at that. My latest book is a novella called The Jamaican. I've written a another book called The End of Black Studies, which actually it's in other words, it says the end of Black Studies. That's just the title. And end has two meanings. End means the end of something, but end is also the goal. So
Hmm.
the theme of this book is what is the end or the goal of Black Studies? And is it ending? What
Hmm.
what is the goal of Black Studies? What is the goal of Black Studies? Has it
Hmm.
achieved it? And is it ending nonetheless, whether it's achieved it or not? So what's the goal? Has it achieved it? And is it
Hmm.
ending? That's a way for me to just go over everything almost that I've been teaching here at the college.
Wow. Now, I just wanted to now use this opportunity. You talked about a lot of study focusing on Jamaica, and
Mhm.
Jamaica is a very prominent island nation in the Caribbean, particularly a lot of people have immigrated from Jamaica. The culture of Jamaica is very exciting. It's been, popular.
It's very popular. It's very influential. But there are many cultures in the Caribbean. But the reason why Jamaican culture is so prominent, one of the reasons is because Jamaica is the third most populous English speaking country in the Americas after the United States, Canada, then comes Jamaica.
Mm. Now, with that in mind, I know that this year there was a release of a very popular film about a very important person who came out of Jamaica, brother and Robert Nestor Marley,
Right.
who second to the great Marcus Messiah Garvey was a very prominent man who made a major impact. So thinking about that, his role and what you saw in the film One Love, which was
Mhm.
really looking at one aspect of his life, particularly with his immediate family. Tell us what your perceptions were of the movie.
Well, okay, now let me just preface it by saying you mentioned Marcus Garvey, right? Let
Mhm.
me just preface it by saying there are people in Jamaica called the Maroons, right? And the Maroons were people who escaped from bondage in 1655 when Britain seized the island from Spain. They went into the hills and melded in with the few local people, Arawak, that remained, and they set up an African political, cultural, economic, and military system that controlled most of the island. However, they were insular, and so what happened was after bondage ended, many Jamaicans went up into the hills and joined them and whatnot, but they still had their independent communities and still have them to this day. However, they are inward looking and they're insular. However, Marcus Garvey was descended from the Maroons. So he took their idea of pride in African, African consciousness and brought it out into a political movement. Now, when he reached the apex and end of his career, he said, "Look to the east, the king shall be crowned," and that was Ethiopia and Haile Selassie, and he purports to trace himself back to Solomon and Sheba. Well, if that's the case, he made him the most royal person on earth. All the royal families of the world sent representatives to his inauguration. He's called Rastafari because he was the crown prince. That means crown prince in Ethiopia. So he becomes on the scene. Now, what happens is that uh, Garvey's words generated a movement called Rastafarianism, which held this man as the deity. All right. And what happened was that Bob Marley, being a Rastafarian, he took their religious ideas and turned it into a popular music. So there's a through line going from Bob Marley to the Rastafarians, back to Marcus Garvey, back to the Maroons. So that's my preface.
Mhm.
But okay,
Yeah. So let's talk about the film, what
yes.
you saw and what you liked versus your questions about it, if any.
Well, you see, you say, what did I like about the film? I have to tell you that very few. I I basically look at movies not in order to for enjoyment. I don't watch movies for enjoyment. I watch movies to analyze the messages that they contain. That my enjoyment is a side thing. It was somewhat entertaining. But here's what I wanted to say about the movie. Um, I thought that it captured a time and place in Jamaica effectively. I did think that the actor that played him did a good job. However, the actor that played him was a relatively tall gentleman with a relatively powerful frame, and that lent to the actor's power. But Marley was not a tall man, was not a powerful man physically, but he was powerful spiritually, and his music. So that was a little bit different. But I guess that's Hollywood, and I guess that's how they had to do it. Also, the movie spent very little time on the nature of the political violence gripping the island at the time, which was part of my dissertation. And they didn't have that much time in the movie, so I can understand that. Now, there were and there are two main parties in Jamaica. And what at the time, there was one party headed by Michael Manley, who presented himself as a socialist, and another presented by a man called Edward Seaga, who presented himself as a staunch American ally and capitalist. Well, what happened was the prime minister at the time was friendly to Castro, and that caused the American government to get upset. And so they began to fund the other party and engage in political violence and equip them with weaponry and stuff. And what happened is you fight fire with fire. So before long, both sides were involved in political violence. Bob Marley in the movie, a key part of the movie was Bob Marley's concert to try to end the political bickering. Now, and they tried to kill him when that happened. Now, I don't think he fully understood or appreciated the situation. Neither side wanted the fighting to end. And so he put himself in the crosshairs, and that's what happened. That's not right, but that's what happened. Now, you see, because Jamaica in the 70s was a Cold War battlefield between the United States and Russia, and music was not going to stop it, because music is basically controlled by the power structure. And that's why you see so many songs about love, because that's a safe topic. But Bob Marley, he spoke about real political issues. The people today think that music is love. No, but that's because the nature of the record industry is such that anything that is political or whatever doesn't serve their ends of the establishment, is not allowed. Also, what was interesting, it's widely believed that Bob Marley was given cancer. People believe that, and the movie didn't go into that. And I'm not surprised, because the movie would not have been funded if they had gone into that. But many people believe that. And the reason that people say that is because at the time when he died, there were wars raging in the southern third of Africa to liberate Angola, Mozambique, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, et cetera, et cetera. And the soldiers fighting against the colonial powers used to play his music. He was actually promoting consciousness on a worldwide basis. And it's suspected that he was removed, just like King, Malcolm, Maurice Bishop. All three men died at 39. And 40, you get to be age of enlightenment, you become an elder. Bob Marley died, I think, at 37, 38. And also there's an incident widely reported that he was given a gift of boots, and he put the boots on, and he got a prick in his foot, and he then threw the shoes away, and as soon after he got cancer. You can't prove these things, but that is a suspicion.
Now, you shared a lot of information and insight, And what we're looking at, this being our part one of probably a three-part conversation, looking at it in this particular very informed conversation in terms of the impact of Bob Marley, the man, and on the world. You know, that Jamaica being the first one, and you saw this triumphant of even in the part where he was really, his health was really dwindling, him standing there with these two leaders, bringing them together, the power of his music.
Mhm.
And so I just had to, that to me was just so powerful, seeing him, and the fact that the family really came together. They all were really about, I mean, his immediate family, that is, even though, you know, we know that he had other many branches, but the
Mhm.
fact that they showed actual footage of him with Siaga, with Manley at the end, coming, bringing them together, trying to end the Civil War, and stuff. They didn't talk a lot about his global, impact, which was definitely there. But the fact that through music and the power, and I think one thing about Marley, the power of our music, the power of gospel, like the power of reggae. No one that I've seen coming out of Jamaica has the power of the music as Marley. I must say, I love Peter Tosh too. He and I don't know what broke him and Marley up. They were two very powerful musicians. Unfortunately, left here before their time. But I think that the power, and I think that whatever forces are out there, realize that our music has power. So as we start to look at some of the thoughts that came away as we think about the power of Marley, the impact, what did you come away with in terms of what people could take from looking at the movie, and maybe looking at it again, if anything?
The movie, again, a movie is a movie. It's a way to tap into something deeper, right? Now, you see, you mentioned that nobody else since Marley has taken reggae and given it the inspirational power that he gave it. Soon after he died, the shift of Jamaican music became dance hall. It was not really dealing with politics. And I mean, you have to understand that soon after he died, Rita made a song celebrating marijuana.
Mm,
And I mean, that has to, I mean, she can do whatever she wants. But I'm just simply saying that's an example of the record industry taking things, where they want to take it.
definitely.
Uh,
Mhm.
the thing now is, you see, it's really interesting. The showing him standing there with the two leaders. I think they showed the actual footage of him standing
Yes.
there with two leaders, right? Which is great, which is a symbol, you see. But you have to understand that didn't end the violence. The violence continued, and you have to understand that the person that came in there to shoot up the place, he was sent.
Mm.
He was sent. So the two men can stand up there, but one of them had to have, because I mean, what else could, that's the conclusion I would come to.
In line with that, and like you said something about the music changed after Marley was off the scene.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, his widow may have started the trail of, through some of the music that she
But
introduced.
even if she didn't do it, they can take it there. Man, they just don't give it a mic. Then he give it to somebody else. I'm not blaming
Mhm.
her.
No, no, understood. But I'm saying the music that was supported,
Right.
promoted, was the dance hall.
Yeah.
That the conscious music, because not just Marley, you had Peter Tosh, unfortunately, he was, left us. There were several others who tried, but they did not. Muda Baruka, who I saw in the movie, interestingly enough, but they didn't introduce him. He was kind of like somebody there, a servant or a supporter in the background. You had Muda Baruka opening up the gates, and playing that role. But I'm just saying that there were a lot of people, but they didn't get the same level of impact or influence as Marley did.
Same thing happened here with rap music. I mean, come on. It would come out one way, then all of a sudden it's something else. Then you see this thing with P. Diddy beating a woman down on the ground.
Hmm.
Created him.
Hmm.
And they pull him down. We don't create these people. You see, the problem is You see, in from my perspective, you see, the media is called the mass media. Media means something in the middle is called a medium. More than one thing in the middle is Latin plural of medium, because that's a medium, that's a Latin word, is media. So what happens is the media is the thing in the middle of the communication system that we use. You see, but the communication system that we use, the people that control it are few in number, but the masses are great in number. But how can it be a medium of communication if it's not two-way? If it's one way, it's a medium of instruction.
Mm.
Look what it, look what it promotes. I just saw a man, there's somebody called Charlemagne the God. Totally uninspiring. But he gets the microphone.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. I think that people are selected to be in front of our people. These people are not necessarily that much enlightened. They are just, some of them are former, with strippers, former hustlers. But these folks become the people that are picked to be in front of us. And to me, that's deliberate, because these people promote materialism. They don't promote unity. They're about themselves and getting their personal agendas or wealth, thing, but not about anyone else. So these are the people that are put in front of our children and our people.
Right. You see,
to promote a certain agenda.
But you see, take a look at Motown. You see, Motown was created by the people. They had songs. They had songs that were about love, but many songs were about consciousness. Many of the people that were the men in Motown, many of them had records, but they didn't wear that on their sleeve. They were not trying to put that forward. You see, but where did Berry Gordy get? Where did he get his people? He went to the closest high school to his house. That's how talented we are. I was a child, I lived in the projects, and one day they had a talent show. I was shocked at how all my playmates could sing, play music. You see. So yes, that's what happens. But Motown is gone now. But you see what? But check out what Berry Gordy did with Motown. You see, not only did they make music, he went into movies, and he was nominated for director on his first movie. And if you take a look at that, what was the name of it again? The second one was Mahogany. Oh, Lady Sings the Blues. Richard Pryor, Diana Ross, all of them. That's the first time they were ever in the movies, in a movie, and they did an excellent job. So what Berry Gordy did was not just make positive music. He also made movies about our iconic stars from the past, like Billie Holiday, and Satchel Paige and the Bingo Long All Stars. So exactly. He's solidifying their memory in our mind, and at the same time creating new icons like Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and the whole panoply. But then what happens? He himself becomes an iconic figure, and they continue to make a series of movies and plays about what he created.
Exactly.
That's the positive side.
That's the positive side.
Because you see, what's that? Where's Black Enterprise? Not owned by Black people anymore. Where's Ebony? Not owned by, you see? So what happened is the media gets more and more control over the people. But who do they have to control? The most dynamic element, which is the African-American people.
Exactly. And basically the fact that the culture from America impacts the world. People all over the globe emulate our people, emulate the children, emulate the youth.
Come on.
So, rap music
the most popular person throughout most of the 20th century has been an African-American. You go from Martin Luther King to Michael Jackson to Jesse Jackson. You could just keep going on and on. This is really, The whole Constitution and the Declaration of Independence is founded on a pact with God to state that all people are created equal. And all the trouble we've had since then, civil war, civil rights movement, what's happening now, is because they haven't fulfilled it.
Mhm. And so one of the things, and I thank you for sharing that, and as we conclude this segment, basically we want people to think about the messages in the music, how history has made a major impact on the quality of music. The civil rights movement was very prominent during the Motown years. People were fighting against colonialism, and particularly in Africa, the Caribbean. So a lot of the music really spoke on that. Right now, we're dealing with a different dynamic. And so the impact of a lot of other drugs and other destabilization methods have really impacted the quality of the music that we're dealing with right now in the United States. And so as we continue this conversation about the message in media, we will look at, and thank you so much for sharing about the history of Jamaica and the impact of this movie. I enjoyed it because it was an opportunity to see that family structure of Marley and Rita, and certainly you could have told lots of different angles of his story. But the fact that his family had something to do with this particular version, and certainly I think it makes people want to do more research, hopefully, and knowing more about the man, his music, and the mission. But
Right.
with that said, I want to thank you so much for joining us for this segment, and we look forward for other conversations as relates to the message in the media. Thank you, Dr. Lewin.
Thank you for having me.
If you would like to support these broadcasts, we encourage you to send contributions to P.O. Box 300851, Jamaica, New York 11430. Thank you.